Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Next slide, please, sir. So welcome. This is Wayne.
Hi.
Quick sales pitch, 1 second. We do 3 things. We train recruiters on recruitment, temp, perm, contract. We train them on Bullhorn, automation, analytics, and any other bit of tech they're likely to have lying around. We help them improve speed and pipeline through training. Also, you might be one of our vision clients where we help you get Bullhorn ROI. So we'll audit how you use Bullhorn and what other tech stack you might have getting in the way or not getting in the way and help you make it better. And if you're an automation client, you know what we're capable of. So a lot of the time we'll either help you implement automation from scratch, or if you've already got it, we will really turn it up and turn up the volume. And one of our recent case studies was helping a client uncover 1,200 sales leads in their database. Thank you very much. Continue. But I'm just going to chuck some stats up in front of you, and I'm not going to read all of them out because I would assume you're very clever creatures because you're on the webinar today. But there might be a stat in there that you think, oh God, yeah. Or it might be, hold on, really, I can place candidates quicker if I kind of look in less places and like look at the data I've got in front of me. Yes, you can. And for those of you who've been in recruitment a long time, and I'm spotting some names on the webinar that I've had chats with recently, you'll know we used to have much smaller data sets and know it more intimately and work it harder. But then as time has gone on, more data, more systems and process has gone a little bit to the wind. And of course, automation's come along and gone, I can help you get back control of your process. And I'm like, too freaking right, about time. But yeah, there's some stats on there that might just help you position it. One of the ones that I find most interesting is on average, 7 people are involved in buying decisions. So if you are working with a company of maybe 100 or more people, the person you're speaking to might not be the only one you need to network. So you need to be thinking about how automation can help you get right inside the muscle of that business and protect it. You know, the seasoned recruiters out there will know that whoever you're dealing with in a client, you need to protect your interests by squirreling around a little bit deeper and not just relying on that one contact. The younger recruiters out there will know how painful it is when a contact that you rely on for a lot of your fees disappears or moves. Not kidnapped by aliens, obviously. That's another automation webinar for another day. But that's something for you to think about. We're going to give you lots of ideas. So let's continue, because ultimately, I don't want any more wasted time in the recruitment industry. I see too much waste. And as well, we talk about the 3 C's a lot in recruitment: candidates, clients, and colleagues. But often automation or systems are focused on candidates and clients. And I'm a big fan of, you put your colleagues in the driving seat, you give them the best training, the most sophisticated automations, not necessarily loads more data and loads more systems and lots of hope. Yeah. You're going to end up with 3 very unhappy C's and then probably not much of the 4th, which is cash. So we need to be thinking about that and fixating on that throughout the webinar today. And any webinars that you come on, that's where we are firmly pointing our laser, whether it be Bullhorn first training or automation training, and soon analytics, because we're about to start doing some work in that space as well. Whilst we're on this webinar and any webinars that you come to, I want you to be thinking constantly and being honest with yourself about your business or yourselves. Where are you in that Bullhorn estate? Whether you love the system or not, it's irrelevant. What's it doing for you? What's your business's method and madness around it? Are you sometimes, when you've got a minute on a Thursday afternoon because you've got to get an interview confirmed, or are you first? Ideally, we've got one client who's only, but maybe you're never, or maybe you're last. But let's try and get into that first camp, because we know, because we've done it, that clients that use Bullhorn first for their sales, their sourcing, their BD, their account management, their time management, their staff management, they make more money and they do it quicker and easier, which is quite nice as well. So have a think about that throughout this webinar today and any other webinars that you come. Now, I want you to talk to me about your automation ROI. I want to understand if it's actually helping you. I want you to actually take a moment and answer this question for me. Just take a moment. What we often find, if I'm honest, and I know that Wayne does a lot of work as I call him, my chief automator, is that people start off like everything. January, gym membership. There are some that will just go for it and find a new lease of life. And there are others where life takes over quite quickly, or you might become the victim of your own automation success, where you've automated one part of the business and then all of a sudden you're getting all of the good stuff, but then you've got to automate the next bit. And of course, what we excel in is doing some heavy lifting, if that's what you need, guys and girls. So just consider that with all of the advice that Wayne and I are going to be giving you today. But we do find that automation, for me, I want you to imagine it's doing the job of 10 or 20 recruiters in your business. Would you ignore it? Would you have regular one-to-ones? Would you be making sure that it's okay? Would you be giving it a clean up? Wayne did a 1-minute tip recently about housekeeping. We do regularly come across clients who've got too much switched on and it's all a bit dirty. And then as a result of that, it starts to creak and maybe start messaging the wrong people at the wrong time. Then confidence in automation starts to degrade. And then you start getting issues with your recruiters going, get off my data. Maybe, Wayne, am I right or wrong there?
Not far off. Yeah.
Not far off. That's him sitting on the fence. So we're actually going to do a bit of a tag team today, rather than me just letting him drive. There's 2 driving seats, she says. This could be interesting for those of you who know about our relationship outside of work. So the automation agenda today, we're going to be fixated on 4 key elements of recruitment: advertising, sourcing, marketing, and business development. And we're going to give you a little bit of a Bullhorn tip. Now, just bear in mind as well, we've not gone live with it yet, but in December, in December, we're going to be running a webinar that tags on to the end of this one about how to use Bullhorn itself, so that you don't need to use LinkedIn and job adverts as much. And that's going to be great for your recruitment consultants if one of the things that you really want to do is reduce the cost of and reliance on Indeed, job adverts, and all of that lovely stuff. My job today is going to give you some impact statements around, if you continue to maybe rely too much on those things and not enough on Bullhorn, what the impact is likely to be. And Wayne's going to give you some ideas about how to use automation to release the pressure and release the reliance on those things. We are regularly winning clients who are looking at their LinkedIn, Indeed, and job board renewals and going, what? No, I'm not spending that. Or I'd rather only spend 10% or 50% and reinvest it, or reinvest a percentage of it in becoming amazing at automation. And that's one of the things I really want you to be thinking about throughout this webinar today is, we're not saying cancel everything but Bullhorn and automation, but what we are saying is educate yourself so you can make better decisions in the coming years. Even if your renewals aren't for another year, trust me, blink. Yeah, I mean, where the hell has 2024 gone? Flash forward, I'm going to be saying, where the hell is fill in the gap? 25, 26, sorry, everybody, we all want to be in an island by then, don't we? Right, so let's get cracking. So that was the warm up to get you really thinking about the purpose of this webinar. Ideally is Bullhorn first. Now, we know that there are going to be times, especially if you're in headhunting or you're breaking into new territories or opening up in new areas, or maybe even generating new sectors. There are going to be times when you genuinely have no alternative but to advertise jobs, to market your business externally, to basically end new BD has to be king. There's going to be times when you absolutely have to source outside of Bullhorn. We absolutely get it. We're not here pretending that the grass is greener and it's all going to be easy if you stop doing that. But I just want to give you some choices about how you spend your money, as opposed to feel that you have to do it. I've had one client recently who's having to put an extra 100 grand of their hard-earned profit onto their Indeed invoicing because they weren't necessarily ready, and none of us were when Indeed decided to change their invoicing structure. It's probably a polite way of putting it. So let's move on. So we're going to start off with advertising jobs, and I want you to think about the impact that what we see as Barclay Jones when we're working with lots of recruiters. It's that cycle, that insanity cycle that we all see. Yeah. We understand you need to advertise your job sometimes, but I personally see that there's an interesting impact of that. Obviously, you'll get more candidates, but you're also potentially going to get more dirt as well. You're going to get more aspirational candidates, the ones that would really like to, but can't. They're maybe not screened. They're going to take up more time. And of course, the more time you spend sourcing and screening, the less time you're probably actually making placements. I don't want you wasting money and time on those activities if you really don't need to. Especially if we know as well that there's a lot of risk associated when you advertise a job. I personally, and I've had direct experience of this, I personally have seen that when a recruiter advertises a job, potentially what they're saying to candidates is, I know you applied for that job in a previous life, but I can't find you. Or maybe to a client, I know my website says that I'm a niche specialist in ABC, but turns out I'm not. I know you're not saying that, but it's amazing how people could look at your online behaviors and the time it takes you to find candidates and then make an assumption that you're a job board, which I think is a real shame, because I know plenty of recruiters that are proper consultants. Equally, I know as well, because I train recruiters to do it, that recruiters are very good at finding new business by scraping jobs off the internet, your jobs. So I'm a big fan of why are we doing this? Why are we actually continuing with that process? And again, I'll go back to my 25 years in recruitment. We've piled more data, more systems onto a process, but not actually looked at the process as such and gone, does it need to be like this? And whilst we continue to have to keep running at that speed without stopping and thinking, LinkedIn, job boards and Indeed are going, you keep doing that. They quite like it. They've made it very easy to buy from them, haven't they? Made it very easy to find more crappy data. So Wayne has a solution for you. Over to Wayne.
So I talk to a lot of our clients about the advertised job process. I like the advertised job process because it's another tool that your recruiters have in their toolbox. The main reason why I like it, though, is 72% of the time, according to Dextra, or 68% of the time if you're a Bullhorn stat. Either way, 2/3 or 3/4 of your candidates that you attract through an advert is already on your database, which means it's cost you maybe 3/4 of your budget just to re-download the same CV onto your database. It's not a great experience from a candidate perspective. Why are they applying for a job? Why are you not reaching out to candidates and saying, we've got this particular job, we know that you're interested in these sorts of roles, why don't we have a conversation? So the advertised job process, I think, is a really great tool that your recruiters can use to reach out and source candidates that are relevant to the job and opportunity. That will remove the rubbish, potentially, because the number of candidates that apply that are not relevant, those aspirational people, your recruiters have to sift through all that rubbish. So why don't we get on sifting through the good quality candidates in your database immediately? If they're specialists in their industry already, say you work for Java developers or you want to work with Java developers, if you've got a list available to you, then you should be able to go through that list really quickly and reach out to those candidates very, very quickly. So the advertised job process enables you to do that. Now, the great benefit of advertised jobs, sometimes, you may have a list of 100 or 200 or 300 people in that list. There is an opportunity for you not to worry too much about dirty data, because you can also ask a candidate, if it's not relevant, what is it good for? What are you interested in? So there's an opportunity for the candidate to do some self-serve, which will cleanse your database, which is not something that your recruiters would do very often if they're speaking to candidates. So lots of opportunities around advertised jobs, shortlisting candidates against the job. You need to have a process. Some businesses have a very defined process about shortlisting and what it's there to do. Some people, it's a bit of a free-for-all. So you just need to standardize at what point does the advertised job process run. In my world, it should be the first thing that your recruiters be doing. Reaching out to candidates that are already on your database that you know are interested in the types of roles that you're about to reach out to them with. Advertised jobs. Examples of when we've done this. Typically, the average response rate would be about 20%. So 1 in 5 candidates that you reach out will probably come back to you. I've had it much higher than that. I've had it up to 68% before, but that was a very hot targeted database of SAP candidates. All they did was SAP recruitment. They were very, very regularly in contact with those people. This journey was just an extension of that and just helped them engage those candidates really quickly. Now, one of the pushbacks we sometimes get from this is, well, we already do this through distribution lists in Bullhorn. Here's an interesting stat. If you send one email, you will get about 50% of the people that are interested in that role coming back to you. What we notice through advertised jobs, though, if you send a second email or a third email, like a follow-up or we've not heard from you sort of journey, what you tend to see is that another 50% of people will come back to you. So you're only sending one email, you're only going to get 50% of the people that would normally come back to you coming through to you. So the advertised job process, it's a campaign, it runs in the background, it continuously reaches out for a period of time. The other great experience as well is that I would expect to see between 50 and 66% of the candidates respond within the first 24 hours. There will be some stragglers, but that initial outreach that you have within 24 hours, you should have already identified potentially who you're speaking to or who you have spoken to. Whereas if you're advertising that through maybe LinkedIn or some other places, you've got to wait for that advert to land in people's inbox and for them to engage with it amongst all their other feeds, yeah, and all the other distractions that they get. And this is not just about initially engaging the candidate. It's about sending the relevant jobs to the candidates. Yeah, that's a really, really important process. If you've spoken to your candidate and they say they're only interested in Java development roles, and then you start sending them all sorts of weird and wacky rubbish, yeah, that's going to be a very poor experience. Whereas what your recruiters are doing with the advertised job process, they're selecting the candidates that they're interested in. Good. Dare we call it a long list? Here's a long list of people I'm interested in speaking to that I think fulfills the role. Yeah, and so therefore it's a great candidate experience of sending relevant jobs to the candidates when they've expressed an interest in you previously. So advertised job process, I think it's a really great journey, a really great way of getting candidates engaged with your brand, and also get your recruiters to engage with the candidates that are already in your database. It'll reduce your costs. It reduces the time it takes to actually get to start speaking to candidates as well.
I think, I always remember back in the good old days, she says, were they that good? I don't know. They were definitely old. That recruiters, as they were taking a job brief, were searching the database real time. And basically the time to placement was a lot shorter, it felt. Now, obviously, I don't have the data to prove that. I just have my own narrative and my own experience. But we do know from the data that Bullhorn has also given us through their grid that if you rely on your Bullhorn data mainly, you will on average reduce your placement timeline by 20 days. And there's a lot of 20 days in 365. So I'm a big fan of you can get through more placements probably with the same amount of people. And I know some of the people on the webinar today are really, really, really set on improving productivity rather than just increasing headcount. And that's something for us to think about, especially with the current budgets and things that and world events. We need the systems to absolutely do the heavy lifting as opposed to just cost. Okay. So I'm interested in sourcing now for obvious reasons. Sourcing is something that I personally think takes a long time. It takes too long. And I think one of the reasons it does is because most recruiters do struggle with a fear of missing out. Maybe they've been putting data onto the system for too long and it's not in a great state. So they look, they can't see, they go get more. They put it on the system, they look, they can't see, they go get more. And of course, LinkedIn and job boards and Indeed really do thrive on that workflow. I'm a big fan of it not being like this forever. Even if you just took this webinar today and went, right, what steps do I need to take so I can reduce my sourcing time from the average 13 hours a week to 6 hours a week and get 7 hours back to do more BD or better account management or improve my NPS scores or, God forbid, capitalize on the very high referral stats that recruiters that do referral schemes benefit from. So I want you to be thinking about, yes, you can source outside Bullhorn. Obviously, there's going to be times when you genuinely need to do that. But if you're not doing that first, you're not coming into Bullhorn first, then actually what you're doing is just finding more aspirational, dirty data. I think ultimately, as well as evidently, you're probably going to find data that you've probably already got. And we know that the data, the stats tell us that the majority of placements that the average recruiter makes, they make with candidates they had all along, a bit like Dorothy and her ruby slippers. They had the data all along, but they spent a crazy amount of time and money reinventing it, which for me is more than a shame. So I want to increase speed here, and I want you to be thinking about Wayne's ideas about how to improve your sourcing so you can stick within Bullhorn. The other thing as well is you're dealing when you're outside of Bullhorn with probably very cold, untrustworthy data that hasn't had the benefit of your look and feel. It hasn't had the benefit of your codes. So you are having to wake up data that might have also been prodded quite a bit recently by other recruiters, and it's had enough, or it's quite hard to track down. I think as well, because you are doing that, you're evidently increasing the risk of failure, you're improving your competitors' chances, and ultimately, again, you're just putting good money after bad. And again, ultimately, the obvious. Now, again, look at Bullhorn's stat here. If you source from Bullhorn first, you're going to place candidates quicker. And that's cool, isn't it? Because actually you can sit with your clients and go, on average, our placement ratios are X. So in the very least, start fixating on how long it's taking you to place candidates and whether or not you can segment it into candidates that are on your system all along or candidates that you had to source from elsewhere. And you may notice some interesting discrepancies. Right then. So what solution have you got, Wayne?
So sourcing outside of Bullhorn, it all comes down to why are they sourcing outside of Bullhorn? Invariably, that's because the data in Bullhorn against candidates is probably out of date. It's certainly maybe missing some key fields information. So as a strategy, if you want people to be sourcing from within Bullhorn, you need a candidate strategy that enables them to update their data remotely or by themselves and not rely on the recruiters to do that, as well as enable the candidate to keep their data updated on a more regular basis. So it's not a case of you reach out once. You need to have a strategy that continuously reaches out to candidates over the course of the lifetime that they're on the database for, whatever your privacy policy states. I always like to try and get clients to think about Bullhorn as just another job board. You know, we stop seeing it as a CRM, we start seeing it as a job board with a wonderful pool of candidates in there. And if we're able to get the recruiters to go into Bullhorn first and source the candidates and search against the database, you know, that's something that I think they would appreciate doing, and that all comes down to the data quality. So there are various different candidate engagement strategies that you can have. You know, you've got two sets of data. You've got your new data when new candidates enter the journey or enter the database. What do we do? What journey do we take those people on? Let's nail the new part first, and then you can start thinking about the historic elements as well. So the historic data that's on your database. Candidates originally would sign up on your website for jobs by email. So why are we not using automation to send them jobs by email? So there is a little tool called Semantic Match. It needs a little bit of frigging about in order to get it set up correctly, if that's a word that I'm allowed to use these days. But the idea there is that once you've got the understanding of what the candidate is looking for and their records coded up, and on top of that, the job is coded up in a similar way, then the semantic matching algorithm should sit there and identify the relevant jobs and fire those out the door. That has also changed this year. There's now a percentage of accuracy rating against it. So you can exclude anything below a certain percentage. So therefore, you can only basically say only people with an excellence match of over 85% do we send the information out, which I think is really important. There is, if you're an enterprise Bullhorn automation user, there's a system called Automatch. And I think this is probably where the recruitment industry is going to move to in the next couple of years. Those resources that would sit there and source candidates, I think AI is certainly going to be sort of taking over that role potentially. So therefore, Automatch is a tool that will match candidates against a job based around some key criteria, and I've listed out the ones down below in the semantic matching key fields at the bottom there. It's going to identify that you've got a Java developer and you've got a Java development role and put 2 and 2 together and then shortlist those candidates against the job. That's the route you can go. You can just notify the recruiters if you want to. But Automatch is great. It's a couple of hints and tricks that you can use as well to improve that matching algorithm. And I suspect over the next year or two, this is where Bullhorn and AI will really be focused in on. How can we match candidates that we've got in the database against our live jobs and potentially use advertised job to automatically reach out to those candidates. So your recruiter could just add a job, code it up correctly, get the advert written, yeah, and in a couple of hours, you've got candidates messaging you back saying, I'm interested in the role. And your recruiters then are focused on screening those candidates. That potentially is where things are heading towards. The other thing as well, we're going to come on to this later on, is grading. I'm a massive believer, if you can get your recruiters to focus in on their specialisms, and like Lisa said a second ago, instead of basically every time I get a new job, I start a new search and I advertise and I forget everything that I've done previously. The great thing about the advertised job process, if I get a Java development role and I get another one, then I can look at my shortlist that I shortlist those candidates I shortlisted last time, I can immediately identify the ones that I think are relevant, and I can copy that straight away into my new advertised job process. That's one great thing that you can be doing there. With the grading side of things, what you can be doing is identifying those candidates that have a great opportunity or you think are quality candidates. That means next time you source the candidates, you can say, only show me the Java grade A candidates, people that I've spoken to that I know are working at some fantastic roles currently. Whatever that grading structure is, that will just help speed up your sourcing process. The other key thing as well, from an ROI and a value perspective, is that when your recruiters are sourcing candidates, maybe through advertised jobs or maybe through the database, they actually input the source of that candidate when they're shortlisting or submitting the candidate, where they found them. Is it Bullhorn? Is it automation? Yeah, that will help you then understand the value of what your recruiters are doing. And also then you can start monitoring, if you've got a lovely graph, how much money you're saving, because more and more people are basically sourcing through Bullhorn. Another key area as well is sourcing with advertised jobs and with Automatch and those other ones. You only want to be focused around open jobs. So those jobs that are published on your website. So every new job that you get in, if you can try and get your recruiters to add a job, yeah, then the Automatch or the semantic matching algorithm can then sort of advertise that and reach out to candidates, and you can show them the job and they can apply via the website itself. So sourcing good quality data, candidate engagement strategies that are running continuously to cleanse up the database, utilizing and leveraging the key tools of semantic match or Automatch if you've got it, and also making sure you close down your inactive jobs, your old jobs that are no longer alive. Make sure that you close them. And again, there's an automation that you can do that for as well. In terms of experience, I'm going to focus in on candidate engagement. We like to think of candidates in 3 buckets. Actively looking, somebody who is currently actively wanting a new position. Bullhorn states that if somebody's actively engaged with a business or they're actively looking, they expect communicating on a weekly basis. So that's either notifications to your recruiters to remind them you've not spoken to these active candidates, or using automation and leveraging and drip feeding them some email content every now and then just to keep them engaged. Passive candidates are those people that are open to a move if the right opportunity came along. So using semantic match or the semantic match to be able to drip feed jobs on a monthly basis to those people, that's a really great way of just keeping those people engaged. And those people that say they're not looking, they're inactive, well, you still need to be reaching out to them. So once a quarter, once every 6 months, whatever that time frame needs to be, you still need to be reaching out to them and finding whether or not anything has changed with their current circumstances. Now, when we've done this previously, we've seen a significant improvement in terms of data quality. If you think about the key search fields that your recruiters are searching against, you know, the type of roles, the locations, the salary details, etc., you can be using surveys within your active, passive and inactive journeys to get candidates to update and tell you what it is they're actively looking. Over the course of 12 months, we've seen an increase of about 25% in terms of the quality of data. Now, that's always going to be a moving pinpoint, a bullseye, but the idea there is that you don't need all of your database to be 100% accurate. You just need some good quality data in there for people to get engaged with. The other thing that we noticed as well, you know, we're talking about reducing external costs. If you're sourcing from Bullhorn, then you do a lot less searching and a lot less downloading from your external sources. So we've seen as high as 40%, on average 20 to 40% is sort of the average.
Okay, speedily moving on because I'm aware of time. We know you need to market your business. It's an absolute given. But what I want to make sure of is that you don't market it in such a way that might be doing damage. And obviously, when it comes to automation, marketing to your existing clients and your candidates is absolutely important. But certainly some of the people on the business on the webinar today are in small businesses, and there's only so much time to go around. So I want you to be really thinking about that and thinking about, you know, what you need to do rather than what you want to do, or what somebody might have told you to do. Yeah, focus on what's important. We realized recently that new business is great, but actually working with our existing clients and doing more for them is better. You know, projects, not clients, kind of thing, thinking about it like that. So just bring up that list of bullets just so people can sort of absorb some of the content that I'm talking about here. What we sometimes find when we go into clients that have got automation or are about to start their automation journey, and even if I ask people today, you know, what's your biggest deal? It's business development. And even when we came out of COVID, everyone was fixated on business development. And I was like going, but what's happened to all your existing clients and candidates? What's happened to them? Have they all been kidnapped by aliens? They were still around. But I think sometimes we jump over them in order to get new stuff, But actually, our existing database is where a lot of the money is, and we neglect it, and we just hope. We don't necessarily think about keeping our existing clients. Maybe we don't think about surveying them. Maybe we don't think about creating content from the calls that we have with them. So I want you to be really thinking about that. If you don't use Bullhorn first and automation, and you're using systems like LinkedIn and job boards and Indeed and Glassdoor, to try and win new stuff, that you might be ignoring the stuff that's right in front of you that's cheaper and easier to keep. So that's just something for you to think about. And equally, you know, churn is nobody goes into business to churn. Right, Wayne, I'm aware of time. Let's speed up.
Yeah, so in terms of marketing your business, if you have a marketing function and they may or may not be using automation, you need to make sure that your marketing function is aligned with what your sales team's trying to do. So having a content plan that's mapped out, maybe even if it's just for the next 3 months. So therefore your outreach to candidates, outreach to sales contacts, maybe even outreach to leads, if you use leads and opportunities in Bullhorn, it's aligned. You know exactly what the messaging is going out. You understand what value you're being able to track from those people that are visiting your website or clicking on your emails that are being sent out. I don't see it enough. Marketing, I see it as 2 separate functions sometimes in recruitment. And actually what you need to do with this particular process is making sure that they're aligned and that they're consistent in their messaging. Have a process, understand what it is you're trying to achieve. What data do your recruiters add into Bullhorn? That's one thing that I don't see enough of. I still see too many spreadsheets. Now, here's a list of my leads and they're all in a spreadsheet. Let's get them into Bullhorn. Let's give marketing the ability to say, there's the marketing funnel. Don't worry about the awareness campaigns. We'll manage that at the top of the funnel. We'll track and understand who's opening emails, who's engaging on the website, who's responding to surveys. Yeah. One of my clients has a formula that says after this number of opens and this number of visits and this amount of data, that's what they class as a sales qualified lead, and that's when it gets passed over to the recruiter. So marketing your business is important. It's certainly important for awareness and those nurturing those new relationships, but also it's really, really important for those people that your existing data, those existing clients and sales and candidates that you are currently engaged with or have engaged with in the past. You've got to keep them. You've got to keep yourself front and center in the mind's eye of those people. I've got here the application journey. I think this is a really great time to request more information from a candidate. All too often we see a candidate apply and then we just immediately sort of pick up the phone and start calling, and it's a huge waste of time and effort. Whereas an automation can actually capture a lot of the information that recruiters need. Yeah, so we can see response rates up to 73% in many instances. That's a very, very engaged individual, and they've updated Bullhorn, they've checked their data, they've even probably added more data into that journey. They've also captured GDPR, so if you need double consent, yeah, there's an opportunity for you to say you need to accept this in order for us to be able to communicate with you. And ultimately, if you've communicated what the next steps are, what's the journey you're taking these people through, then they understand. They're going to be happier in understanding what that process needs to be. So candidate application journey, obviously there's lots of other ones that you could use, but I think that's definitely a starting point if you haven't got one of those in place already. Finally, business development leads.
Absolutely. So obviously, again, we know that business development is important. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh no, just chill out. But we do know that account management is sometimes better. It's just, it feels, because maybe of some of the people that we've hired into our business, they like chasing new business. But I have spoken to lots of recruitment leaders recently who know that actually the future of their business lies within the data and the clients and the candidates that they've already got, and the kinds of people that they hire need to be able to manage that, as well as obviously bring new business in. And it's a big ask. The world has gone a little bit insane in recent years. But again, this fear of missing out and this challenge to constantly get new business means we do risk ignoring the stuff that's right in front of us. So I want you to be thinking about this. It came up my mouth the other day and I realized I'd had a moment of clarity where often recruiters are generating lead and the lead is working them rather than them working the lead. You know, maybe they're generating leads that they were never going to place. The clients are just not aligned with your value system. And that's the lead working the consultant as opposed to the other way round. And then we wonder why the national average is only 2 out of every 5 vacancies that a recruiter has they're ever likely to place, which is not a great ratio. Yeah, if you were an Olympic 100-meter dasher, you know, you'd only ever finish 2 out of 5 races. That's not a good stat. You can't put that on your website. So I'm a big fan of using automation to jump that shark and go, right, what time can I generate in my account management process, so when I do BD, I've got a higher hit ratio. I think as well, we've done a load of polling with our clients recently, and they tell us that what gets in the way of great BD is a lack of quality data that you have already. You don't necessarily need more. LinkedIn tells you do. Don't believe them. A lack of quality data coupled with a lack of process and potentially just not enough experience in that person creates a lack of focus and a bit of an everything everywhere all at once approach. So Wayne, what can we do from an automation perspective to help us get BD really cooking with?
So first spot of call is to look at account management. I know we call it account management business development, but re-engaging your existing relationships and maximizing the value from those people. So we always start with clients at risk. We always start with lapsed clients, identifying those people that you've had placements with, but you're not currently engaging with, or there's no notice, certainly there's been no jobs added recently. Notifying your recruiters, just giving them some focus about that. Try calling these people before you do anything else. Let's engage these people and keep them front and centered. There is things called lead awareness campaigns. So again, if you use leads, or you might have a status of a lead for a sales contact, but drip feeding content to those people once every 3-4 weeks, or once a week, or whatever that time frame needs to be. You know, things like case studies, testimonials, candidates that you've recently placed. Again, the more targeted you can be, the better it will be in terms of their attraction. Making sure you've got things like call to actions in the emails. Speaking to a client literally just before this meeting, and we were talking about the different call to actions that you can have in an email. So things like, you know, book my diary, let's have a call. I don't recruit these sorts of people anymore. Again, just get them to click a button on a page. You can track that. And that means it gives you an opportunity to then basically follow up or trigger off other automations, or notify your recruiters that they need to follow up with people as well. Inactive sales contacts or inactive placement owners. How many people have left your business and those relationships are sat there very stagnant, and nobody's engaging with them because they've not been reassigned to people? There's a really quick way within automation to say owner is inactive. That'll pull up a list of people. Now you can forward those onto management to distribute, or you can just forward that onto a distribution list, or hot list, sorry, and get your recruiters to go through that and figure out whether or not there's people in there that they should be speaking to. Follow-up process tracking. So this is really important. If you're going to have all these wonderful automations running in the background, you want to be able to track them. And the number of clients that come to me and say, is there a way in which we can track engagement? Yes, there is. Has activity, and then basically you want to specify what type of activity it is you're looking for. Have you opened it? Have you sent them an email? Have they clicked on something? Have they visited a specific web page? You can track all these things. Gives you an information which you can then layer on top of the information that you've already got, and then you can forward those on to recruiters for sales leads as and when the time is right. So examples, 2 examples here specifically. I've just talked about the tracking website visits. We did this recently for a client. They ran a campaign for some Midlands people. The Midlands team were like, well, we need to find whether or not there's any follow-up. So we sent them a list out of, I think it's 1,000 people that they reached out to. There were 73 unique visitors to that campaign page. We packaged that up, gave it over to the recruiters. First 20 phone calls they made, they picked up 4 jobs. 3 of them for their own team and 1 for another team completely. And they're still working their way through that list now. So tracking visitors to your website, I think, is a really important process. It certainly will generate leads. The other one is a client came to us and said they wanted to increase the value of their website. So again, lots of campaigns were written and sent out through automation. They were getting around about 100 people a month visiting their website. After these campaigns have been running, they've now got over 1,000 visitors to their website. And again, with the example 1 at the top there, we're able to generate leads, forward those onto recruiters, and they're starting to pick up a lot more jobs. So tracking website visits as part of your BD strategy, really, really important to be able to identify who you should be speaking to. So we've got a bonus automation. We'll let you guys watch that separately. It's a video whereby the training team are looking at how you can grade your candidates. Yeah, it's a really simple process, grading your candidates, A, B, C, D, whatever that process needs to be. I think there's some other options in there as well. We'll let them watch that at a later date. Automation next steps. So I think if you're planning on doing this journey, looking at how you can reduce your costs, I think the first thing you need to do is you need to do a bit of analysis. How much are you spending on your external systems currently? Once you've got that figure in place, and once you've turned on your other automations and your other strategies, then you can start monitoring a little bar chart or a little graph to start tracking how much money you're spending. You should see a reduction in the spend if you're using automation effectively. Also look at how much data you've got. So if the average recruiter can only handle about 500 relationships at any one time, then why have you got 4.5 million candidates on your database? What's the value of having all of that data in there? So again, look at the data. If you've got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of candidates and your team are going, we can't find any candidates, there's a slight disconnect there. There's probably a perception issue. Talk to your teams, talk to your teams, get them to understand or get them to tell you why they don't go to Bullhorn first. That'll give you your ideas about what you need to do. What does automation need to do to help? Does it need to cleanse up the data? Do we need to attract more candidates into the database, etc., etc.? Assess the quality of the applications. I did an advert recently on CV Library, and I think I got 1 candidate out of 100 that were relevant for the position. So there was an awful lot of rubbish to go through. That was a total waste of my time. Again, what's the quality of the applications you're getting from those other external sources? Assess new versus updates. So again, that's 72% candidate updating on your database. Is that actually correct? Is that figure about right? Again, can you publish that across the rest of the teams? Once you understand, you analyzed everything, then you need to build your strategy. What automations are you going to be building this month or this quarter? Get your automations down on a piece of paper, publish that so that the rest of the business knows. You then need to educate, as I've just talked about, educating your teams as to what you're trying to achieve. Then you can build, test, release, you launch them, and then obviously you need some feedback from those teams or from those candidates or from those sales contacts, and they'll give you the ability to refine them. Ooh, are you ready?
I'm obviously interested, and I'm very aware of time, bless your little hearts. I'm interested, are you actually ready, bearing in mind what we've said to you today and the kinds of ideas that we've got for you in terms of what we think you need to do to that cost of things like LinkedIn and job boards, etc. Just give me a yes or a no. Are you ready? I'm not going to bother running a poll. Just a Y for yes, you're going to get cracking, or a no, maybe you need a chat with us or some time to get your head around it. Give us a Y or an N, and we'll go from there. Right, on to the next slide. Let's let these people go off. Don't forget, we've got Recruitment Hit, guys. Yeah, we've got Recruitment Hit that's going to help you get your team more weaponized. We run Bullhorn training as well as our online learning management system. So consider us your go-to if you need your recruiters to bolt onto your automations so that you can really go at speed. That's the way that we look at training. You've got automation, you've got humans, put two together, rock and roll. We obviously have our vision projects as well, and we're really proud of the experience that we give clients with our vision projects, where we help them realize their business's vision by using their Bullhorn's tech stack, where we'll audit it and make it go faster and get their team more engaged and adopting the platform as well. So here's a testimonial from one of our recent clients. We're obviously we're buddies as well for our clients when it comes to automation. So whether or not you need some heavy lifting, a cuddle, you need some counseling in terms of how to get your automations up and running or how to get your team more engaged in the platform, we are your gals and boys. So give us a call if you need any help. Don't forget all of our lovely tips on our website. They are there. They are free. We would love to see you on there downloading the 1-minute tips and giving them to your recruiters to help them improve their day, or maybe some of the more long form webinars where we're talking about sourcing, candidate management, job management, tips, screening, whatever you want to do better. Those tips are there. Have a great start to your week, everybody. Thank you so much for spending time with us on the webinar today. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.